This is Nathan with Numa. I uncover the deeper details within your unique biology so that you experience the vital energy needed to create the life that you prefer. Today, I have the gift to be able to talk with and share the perspective from Michael Fessler from Herbalix. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Nathan.
You're in Washington, is that correct?
Correct, Washington State.
If you're open to share your background and what are some of the core choice points or events that happened to your life that got you into where you are in your life today.
In my early years, I was lucky enough to have an uncle, and I used to go to the lab with him, Northern California, and visit with him. So I got to learn about spectrometry, which is a very interesting subject. The other one was that my background from UCLA was in economics. So I was very much into statistics and modeling. I was able to do an underwater study off the Southern California coast, and I applied my economics to a food source. But while doing that, I saw all the runoff from the land affecting the oceans, and that kind of piqued my interest in that. And then my family had chemical company, and I saw people working in the chemical company. They didn't live very long. I got the chance to work for a neurosurgeon. I became his assistant for 23 years. After he passed, we had started a company, Herbalix Restoratives, and what I found that I didn't like my deodorant, and Dr. Blaine and I started this body care without synthetic chemicals and petroleum. The deodorant I made, I had these ingredients that actually cleaned out the underarm. So it did, instead of sealing off the underarm. And so that became what really started my interest and how to understand clinicals from there. There's a lot of crossovers in my field that I was lucky enough.
How did you come to learn or be aware about the deodorant sealing off in that moment where you realized you wanted to do a different strategy than what you kind of grew up being aware of?
When you make a deodorant, but you put a stronger salt, which was the seaweed, in the underarm, and it actually created more odors. But then after a while, they dissipated. And you go, well, why are we sealing off? What's that doing? And so after I made this deodorant, it's called Nighttime Detox Deodorant, people were kind of experimenting and putting it over their breast, and women were using it in a different way. And I got these calls. And I said, what are you talking about? Not in that way, but women were talking about hot flashes, and they had a lump in their breast and it's gone. And so I had to figure a way to detect and investigate this. And the one thing that came in was you couldn't use a mammogram because they could only center on the breast. So thermography back in 2006 was something that had really not been utilized or understood very well. My wife and I decided that we would sponsor a clinical and finance the clinical. And we shaped it that not only would we look at the armpit, but we decided to make a breast cream with a deodorant and see what the changes were compared to a placebo. And when we did that and we expanded the camera, we started to see the dental issues causing inflammatory issues. We started to see people using deodorants, antiperspirants that would seal off. And so the backflow has consequences. That's what we found out, that nobody's looking at the consequences of like when you seal off the underarm. And that's when I found out that the body has these acroinium ducts located in the bottom of the feet, the hands, the underarms, and the scalp. And these are where our daily amount of metals come out, and salts and cellular waste. And so when you block it, the body goes through these changes, but there's a backup that happens to not the blood so much, but the lymphatic system. And that's when I discovered that nobody was understanding the lymphatic system and what it means. I keyed in on these areas with these creams. I just took the creams and started using them in different parts of the body. We used thermography. And then the other part, about 13 years ago, this company called Oligoscan that has a spectrophotometer device that you can, practitioners do it in office, and they measure the hand. And this way I could see what elements people were retaining in their body. And so people don't understand that we accumulate heavy metals, but how to get rid of them. So they think about, taking a supplement and that's going to get rid of things. The body doesn't work that way. And we're now starting to realize that this may be why the disease may be more centered about the lymphatics than the blood. I use topical products and protocols for the lymphatic system. We found out that how important the acroinium ducts, how to use them. So like when you're trying to figure out like why your garbage disposal is not working and you keep trying to put water down and it doesn't go down, you've got to find out why that pipe isn't draining. And that's what your acroinium ducts do. And so I designed these that to open up these pores in your sweat ducts. We have an assortment of products and protocols to map the lymphatic system. People who are having foot pain or swelling in their ankles or knees, or they can't bend their knees, these are some of the issues that podiatrists, lymphedema, lipedema, they don't understand. That they'll have you shave the edge of your calluses on your feet, but that doesn't take care of the problem. What happens is it's the permeability of the skin, especially for the feet. All our salts and metals have a settling to the bottom of the feet. You might get a little edema in the bottom of the feet. As you age, you might get more swelling. Our feet, the skin sometimes does not permeate fast enough. So I made a topical, what we call the diuretic, topical diuretic. It doesn't affect the organs. What it does, it's telling the organs, okay, you have your own lymphatic system around the liver, you have lymph nodes, you have heart, everything has its own lymphatic system, and it has these pathways to drain through the body. And so by using thermography, we've been able to track and see where the blockages are in people so people can self-manage. Blood pressure is maybe not really blood pressure, it's lymphatic pressure because the fluids aren't getting out of the body. So it backs up against the walls of the blood vessels.
How would we be able to discern between a lymphatic blockage and then blood vessel blockage? Thermography and oligoscan.
Oligoscan will give you an idea that the metals aren't draining out of the body. And 13 years ago, Oligoscan tested my products and found out that we were displacing aluminum salts. And not many people are looking at aluminum as a problem, even though it's the third most prevalent element on Earth. It has no biological benefit for human beings.
Did Oligoscan put that art in an article?
They did that privately. We have our own clinicals on the nighttime detox deodorant that we showed the symmetry out of the armpit, where an antiperspirant will back up one side, or even if you don't use deodorants, you have the non-dominant side builds up more heavy metals and salts. We found out that the non-dominant side was more prevalent in breast cancer.
So is that why Oligoscan tests the non-dominant side because of your work? It's because of what you discovered, or had they already?
That's where we synced together because we had discovered it in the armpit. They had known that in the hand. And so we found out that we were on the same track. And they said, you know, you're the only company studying aluminum in the United States that we've been able to find. Because I tried to find for prostate what research company wanted to study aluminum in the prostate of the lymphatic system. Nobody was interested, and they didn't care about aluminum. They had studied all the metals. We're kind of on a different planet with this because they don't teach us in medical school. There's 5 minutes or less or 2 hours or less. We have for our feet, everybody has problems with their feet. It's the underarm, which has implications where we did a clinical for a sentinel breast cream and nighttime detox deodorant. But we found the thyroid, especially after COVID, the brain doesn't drain correctly after COVID for some people. So that underarm plays a big role. This just gives you an idea that these are two things. I have not published my information or these clinicals. Some of them were done on a pilot, or a smaller thing. Reason I didn't publish because AI steals from everybody, and then they get it wrong because they don't understand lymphatic system. When you look under the lymphatic system and AI, they're missing a portion, and that's my portion of research. I did that on purpose because they can go off and, they'll say this supplement does this and this, but it really doesn't correlate with what the lymphatics are doing. It's the permeability of the skin. I went to the anti-aging in Las Vegas a couple of years ago, and I had these doctors lined up and it was at the Oligoscan booth, and we were measuring their metals and minerals. And I saw that a lot of females were wearing shoes, but I could see they weren't wearing socks. So I could see the calluses on the edge of their heel. And I said, well, they've got a lot of heavy metals. And I said, that there's something here. So that's when I went home and experimented, and I found out the bottom of the feet is really important for getting rid of heavy metals on a daily basis. There's not a lot of literature on this because I went out and researched publications, and these MDs will tell me, well, I didn't study for that. I don't know anything about that. So they just go off, look at the money, $500,000 loans. They're taught about blood and drugs. And this is a field they never learned about. And it's all new for a lot of people. Ceramides are these little fat things where the water goes in between and keeps it spongy. So you can't walk on your hands very long. The feet are designed to take a cushion. So what happens when these metal salts don't sweat out, they're very astringent and they dry out the ceramides. And that's why people's feet hurt all of a sudden. You'll see a lot of calluses on people's feet. And then you look at their ankles and you'll see the swelling, and then the calf side starts to grow. So that's like looking at a hose, but the pressure keeps building, but the nozzle's not open. So the metal salts are actually drying out the skin. And that's causing even more damage to getting rid of heavy metals. And these metals will back up all the way up the body, up the spinal cord, into the occipitals. Why we start at the feet is because we want to start with the acroinium ducts. And I have that one product called the Healing Salts I designed, which is Shungite, which dissolves calluses. And I tell people, just let it dissolve it by itself. And they say, well, how long do I have to use it? Well, the Shungite has a grayish to it, and it will impregnate into the skin because it's looking for those metal salts. And you can't see these because they're like atoms. It will stay impregnated in the skin. And when the sweat starts to produce where we want it to and the calluses dissolve, that impregnation will disappear. And that's when we can go to the second step up to the knee, because the knee has lymph nodes, and the lymph nodes have a lot of water, a lot of extracellular metals around it. So we need to drain that to the bottom of the feet. I'll take a map like this and show people how to drain the body so they follow it. Sometimes there's restrictions in our body. If we've had a knee or a hip or a C-section or an accident, it can actually distort the lymphatic vessels and they don't drain. The body's pretty smart. It's got the sodium channel in the skin that it can bypass past that point. And I found by using the product on the skin, it will pull the metal salts up into the sodium channels of the skin and drop it down. And sometimes we have to have thermography to see where the backup is. And car accidents or even a contrast agent, we have found that because if the body's blocked, it will sit maybe in the lower spine. And all that contrast agent is just eating up the calcium in the body. And it can affect our back, our posture. All these kind of tie into, for chiropractors and acupuncturists, why they've been mystified, why things are not draining. That's the Healing Salts. That is our number one product that people put on at night. You can put it on the day. We are being exposed to EMF, so 5G, our houses everywhere. It's unavoidable now, our phones. And the Shungite from Russia is a really very interesting element. It's a grounding agent. So when you put it in the bottom of the feet and you're wearing tennis shoes, it allows anything that penetrates the sweat ducts of EMFs, the radiation, and it will bring it down to the feet. If somebody finishes with an MRI or a contrast agent or to a dental appointment, this is the product we use to help that contrast agent get through the skin. They tell you an MRI, a CT scan with a contrast agent may take you up to 2 years to get rid of the contrast agent, and nobody's talking about that.
Can you say more about that? Because on the Oligoscan, we see that as gadolinium.
The gadolinium elevated amounts of gadolinium. My wife had to have a emergency dental work on a tooth extracted, and she came back and we looked on the Oligoscan and we said, where did that gadolinium come? Well, that was the only place. And then I started having these people finding out in the questionnaire, had you been to a dentist's office, had any tests? We started picking that up. It took me a month to get that to drain past the kidney area, past the hip point, down the hip crease, and we actually saw it on the inner knee, the darkness of the gadolinium, and we got it to the bottom of the feet.
People who are getting MRIs, they're using this gadolinium predominantly.
No, they use different type of contrast agent. The other one that you'll see is elevated levels of barium. And that tells me that somebody's been around some form of radiation, whether it's been in the hospital or like when we were in Slovenia and I was doing a lecture there, and we went to the clinics and I saw a lot of barium. And a lot of the adults, they have a lot of autistic children and ADHD. We know the leakage is from Russia, Chernobyl and things. So it's in soil. It's a problem. These are coming in at us also, like glyphosates, gadolinium, aluminum, and other heavy metals in the food chain and air. Detoxing topically is going to be in a person's best interest because it's a daily thing like brushing your teeth. It's unavoidable. There's different protocols for the breast. There's different protocols for the brain, but this is our main one that we start with. They can always contact you, and I know you can work with people, and you're working on it, and you have the Oligoscan, which is key because we send people to get an Oligoscan test so they can know, because you won't find it in blood, hair, or saliva because it's been extracted away out of the body. So the Oligoscan is watching what's circulating, what hasn't been able to penetrate through the skin. People were probably taught to give a supplement to get rid of heavy metal, and that's their first mistake. It's called the detox trap. We wrote a paper on that one. And after about a year and a half, 2 years, I found people that couldn't get the Oligoscan results on the same patient after a year and a half. It was the same because they were doing the same protocol, keep doing the same thing, getting the same results. And these people paid all this money and time and this effort become this type of practitioner. All of a sudden, like you have to tell them the body doesn't work this way. I know 83% of us as a population are blocked lymphatically and have heavy metals. I mean, you just can't avoid it. So we put everybody on the 7 steps. That's the nighttime detox and then the belly cream. We use these cosmetic names because they're cleansing products. They're not drug products. They're without synthetic chemicals and petroleum. We do have our own preservative that is considered one of the best by people in the cosmetic world. We want people to do organic raw materials. You can see in the knees when they're on the inside of the knee, if people can feel and grab the fluid on the inside of the knee, that's trapped. That probably means the bottom of the feet is not draining, but we all have between 2 and 7 lymph nodes around the knees. And so that's, when I see fluid expansion in the thigh, that is just water, retained water, salt water that needs to go to the bottom of the feet. So it may take several months to get it, but people drain. I'm happy to say people don't hear that swish, swish, swish when they walk because that backup will actually go into the pelvic area. And prostate, vaginal issues are very common to be associated with that. I've talked about this for years. Flexibility, when people can't pick things off the ground, I show them I can. I'm 75. Why can't I do it? You can't. These are the things that will change once you get the fluid out of there. And people are looking at blood and go, okay, we're looking at the varicose veins. Well, what's pushing it to the top of, the skin is all that fluid in the lymphatic system. External things really make a difference. The absence of zinc is probably one of the most important elements that people are missing. We found out earrings because we did the thermography and we saw the earrings can actually soak back into the earlobe, come down to cervical nodes in the neck, we believe can be absorbed by the thyroid. So when breast cancer is involved, it always shows that the thyroid's involved. Breast density is, we believe, because of retention of salts in the breast. When you seal off the underarm, There's no place for these salts to go. The crystal style deodorant will actually collapse the underarms where they won't work anymore. And so now this causes the metals to become sticky. In the tumors, they find a lot of heavy metals, and nobody explains why. They know when you get a mammogram, it causes scattering, and they say, well, you got breast density. We have to go. It's not a disease yet because you guys haven't been able to put a label on it. If you can observe the atoms, you can test your theories. You can come up with ideas. Otherwise, you're completely blind and you don't know what you're really doing. That's why the Oligoscan and thermography. So you got an internal and external, micro and macro way to study something. 10 trillion atoms in one cell. Nobody can see that. So you got to have a way to count that. This is our first test in 2007. The top one was the left and right armpit of individuals. We made it symmetrical. So the metal salts coming out of the armpit are even on the left and right side by using the nighttime detox deodorant. That's why we're so successful with breast cleansing. And that's why we can get this over and over again on these tests that the medical world is not in. The National Institute of Health having workshops in lymphatics, they're in the blind because they're still using blood tests to measure lymphatics. Well, we beat them to it. Let's start at the bottom. The first bottom was the first week. Nobody could use any type of deodorant. So the left and right armpit of that long yellow one, and that is the salts coming out of a person. This person was pretty obese. And they threw him out of it at the end because they thought he was cheating. He wasn't. So the second week they put antiperspirants, we tested, you could see one part of the armpit was sealed off. We know the non-dominant side blocks more salts from getting out. The third week, when they used the nighttime detox deodorant, which was all green, everybody's left and right armpit was symmetric. And that is a medical discovery. They can't take that away from me because it shows up on everybody.
So this first bottom section is week 1, and then week 2, and then week 3?
Correct. So you can see that even if you don't use deodorant, you have the non-dominant side, have thermal dynamics, you don't excrete that much. So the body actually needs help to clean it. And that's what the nighttime detox deodorant does, cleansing deodorant. It's an underarm cleaner. When you do a thermography, you can expand the camera. You can actually see where the white and red in the neck, something's emitting down from there. This is a person from month to month. The top two were the first and second month. The third month, you start to see the nice colors, how clean the body is getting. But there's still something coming from up above. And this is what people have not figured out in the medical world, is because it might be coming from the teeth, it might be coming from earrings. There's some sort of metal disturbance or maybe amalgam that is actually getting into the breast. If you put an antiperspirant or crystal deodorant, you actually block the metals from getting out of the breast. And this is a relatively unknown area for people to understand. So when I gave a lecture at a medical conference, I have everybody compress above their breasts, their thumbs, and to see, and if it hurts.
You're talking about now where the clavicle is.
And there's pain in there. That means there's a blockage keeping the breast from draining to the armpit. First thing I do is I take them off their deodorant. I put them on the nighttime. We have daytime deodorants.
What is the time frame between the top and the bottom here, and what products specifically were they using?
It's the nighttime detox deodorant in the armpit, and it's the breast cream. And so the Sentinel breast cream that we did this study, we know the underarm has a distinct two portals. The upper portion is for the head, and the bottom portion of the armpit is actually for the breast and the thyroid. And we discovered that when using our product, we actually found out that it would split into two different portals. So when the breast was cleansing, the underarm got warmer. So you can see the first month, it's starting to get red in the armpit, especially on the left side, but now it's cooling down because it's got rid of the heavy metals. But they're still coming down, and they're still coming into the breast region. If you don't block the source or find out where it's from, you're going to have the same issue. So this is the way that nobody has really figured that the deodorants are a real problem in this country because they're not tested correctly.
Specifically underneath the clavicle, more towards the
It's
center, or all along that?
all along there. Some people have they're in different locations, and so you're trying to find out where along that it hurts because or has a little pain because when we're doing a breast cleansing, the breast is using that lymph node to get out through the axilla or the underarm. If it's swollen, the metal salts can't get out.
If you're interested in how the Herbalix products can help you, use this promotion code NumaThrive20 when you're checking out any product on the Herbalix website, and you'll get a discount. We'll see you in the next video. Go to our link tree, choose a free 10-minute call, select the day and the time that you prefer to learn more how this fast, non-invasive scan can help you up-level your awareness and improve your life through improving your health.